This is Jill Nadeau.
The shooter's been identified as 21-year-old Ryan Palmater. He bought guns legally in recent months, even though he had been involuntarily committed for a mental health exam in 2017. And Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters told a news conference the gunman left behind writings.
The manifesto is quite frankly the diary of a madman. He was just completely irrational.
The sheriff said the shooter was working under a disgusting ideology of hate as he targeted black people at a Dollar General store. Waters also told reporters the gunman was acting alone. Jill Nadeau, Fox News.
President Biden issuing a statement Sunday condemning the killings. All eyes are on Tropical Storm Idalia, which may make landfall as a hurricane in Florida Tuesday or Wednesday. Many residents preparing. Matt Tracer with Fox TV affiliate WOFL has more from Winter Springs.
Michael Demery remembers the damage Hurricane Ian did to his home.
We had 3 feet of water in our house on Ian, so we're going to make sure we have more sandbags than we had last time and do more prep.
Demery and dozens of others showed up at Winter Springs Central Winds Park to fill up sandbags, getting ready for the chance of bad weather this week.
I'm not going to take a chance after 3 months of everything destroyed in my house.
The city allowed county residents to fill 15 sandbags per household. Officials asked them to bring their own shovels, gloves, and be ready to fill and load the bags themselves. City staff recommended bringing a partner to help because filled sandbags could weigh up to 35 pounds.
Hurricane, tropical storm, and storm surge watches have already been issued for parts of Florida. America's listening to Fox News.
Are you tired of boring jobs that leave you feeling like a broken record? Well, get ready to tune into the most exciting opportunity of a lifetime. Choice Broadcasting. That's Star 101, The Boss and The Point is searching for enthusiastic salespeople and radio DJs to join our incredible team.
Salespeople, listen up. Are you tired of selling random gadgets or dull office supplies?
At Choice Broadcasting, you'll be selling airwaves. That's right, folks. We're talking about selling the magic of music.
And for you music lovers and microphone masters out there, we need DJs who can set the airwaves on fire. Have you always dreamt of being the voice that electrifies the masses? Look no further. We've got the stage where your talent can shine brighter than the sun.
So if you've got the charm, the wit, and the desire to be a part of an extraordinary team, grab your headphones and join us today. Call 888-RDIO or 888-7346 for your application.
Choice Broadcasting, where sales and radio collide and extraordinary careers are born.
A helicopter crash claims the lives of 3 U.S. Marines off the coast of Australia.
The Osprey, it is the primary transport aircraft for the Marines. It allows for vertical takeoff and landings while traveling in the air like a turboprop. Since 2012, the tilt-rotator aircraft has seen 6 fatal crashes, causing at least 19 Marine Corps deaths. Now, this is the second aircraft crash of the week for the Marine Corps. On Thursday, Major Andrew Metler died in an F-18 Hornet crash during a training exercise near San Diego. And the commanding general of the 2nd Marine Aircraft Wing there stated, "We mourn the loss of one of our brothers who was devoted to the Marine Corps mission, and it is our duty to continue forward in a manner that would reflect his devotion."
Fox's Alexandria Hoff. Russian authorities have identified the remains found at the site of a deadly plane crash last week, and they're confirming that the leader of the Wagner Group was among the 10 people killed.
The committee responsible for looking into the incident explained that forensic testing matched the flight manifest that included Wagner leader Yevgeny Prigozhin and his deputy Dmitry Utkin. Russian officials have collected debris from the crash site, including 2 black boxes that should include flight data as well as audio recordings from the cockpit. As questions remain about the exact cause of the crash, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov denied any involvement of Russian President Vladimir Putin, calling speculation a complete lie. American officials believe a bomb or similar act of sabotage brought down the business jet, not a surface-to-air missile as originally thought. On Thursday, Russian President Putin sent his condolences to Prigozhin's family, explaining that he'd known him since the early 1990s. The Russian leader added that the former mercenary general made serious mistakes in his life, but got results when asked.
Fox's Trey Yingst and Simone Biles making history. The gymnastics great winning a record 8th U.S. championship Sunday night. The 26-year-old Biles posting an all-around 2-day total of 118.40. That is 4 points clear of runner-up Shalice Jones. I'm Sue Gussman. America's listening to Fox News.
Check out the super typhoon-size deals at Nissan Guam. Minimally damaged with maximum savings. These chips and dings, courtesy of Typhoon Mawar, mean that our loss is your gain. Get up to $10,000 off your favorite models, plus no money down. Inventory is going fast. So stop by the Nissan Guam showroom, take a test drive, or get pre-qualified for financing at NissanGuam.com today. Unapproved credit. See Nissan Guam for details.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
Half a day. This is Clara Mangloño from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
Well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. As you can see, it's Red Shirt Monday. Am I that inanimate, Jose?
Yeah, you're frozen.
Yeah, it's not even cold in here. Can you unfreeze me?
No, babe.
Well, anyhow, it is Red Shirt Monday. So, as is my usual custom, during the Second Amendment portion of the show, if I've got some Second Amendment news, I'll bring it forward. Got some really interesting local Second Amendment news that ran in this morning's Post and was also covered on Ray's show this morning. And this is the title of the article: "They shut me down without due process or an explanation." Guam's only outdoor public shooting range was shut down by the government, a move the facility's co-owner, John Sablon, said will have negative impacts on the community. The Sportsland shooting range served as a place for people to exercise their Second Amendment right to bear arms long before before Sablon took over the business in 2018. People could come to the range to safely practice through recreational shooting, get proper hands-on education through firearms training courses with nationally certified instructors, and more. The closing of our range means there will no longer be a safe place for citizens to exercise this constitutional right. Well, I think that's going a little bit too far. If you have a right to bear arms, that means you don't have to go to a range in order to bear arms. If you have a right to keep arms, you can do that at home. But I see the point that the guy is trying to make. And then he goes on to say citizens are going to, what he's saying is they're going to be shooting their firearms on residential properties. The shooting range, which sits on agriculturally zoned property, was granted a conditional use permit in 1982. How long ago was that? 41 years ago.
Oh, man.
According to Sablon, that conditional use never expires and was transferred to him when he purchased the property. When I purchased the company in 2018, I did so after doing my due diligence and ensuring legitimate and legal operation of the shooting range. Attorneys, consultants, and government officials, including the Department of Land Management chief planner, gave the green light. So I invested over $1 million into this, Sablon said. Each year, Sablon has renewed the business license for the shooting range as mandated by law. And try a different camera. Okay. Okay. Attorneys, consultants, and government, as you were. Each year since, Sablon has renewed the business license for the shooting range as mandated by law. But this year, the Department of Land Management wouldn't sign off on the renewal. Where am I, Jose? Is that, there I am. Kind of a sidelong look, isn't it? Yeah, it's gonna take a little concentration to get used to looking over here when the microphone is here and Jose's over here.
You're the better looking one, so you can stare at yourself, Bob.
I suppose you're right, yeah.
Take a break today.
Okay. So Sablon said he's renewed his business license every year, but this year, Land Management won't sign the necessary papers. Now, without due process and without any written notice or explanation, Land Management would not sign off on my renewal this year, which led the Department of Rev Tax issuing a notice of violation for not renewing my business license, Sablon told the Daily Post. Because of Typhoon Mawar, business had until July 31 to renew their licenses. Sablon initiated the process in June. When I got to the Department of Land Management, they sat there. It sat there. And they wouldn't give me a written explanation. A written explanation. Did they give you an explanation, John?
It was in semaphore.
Yeah. All stemming from a noise complaint that has since grown to other allegations. Sablon has mentioned that I was also improperly built a temporary structure on the property, but still nothing formally in writing. Sablon was willing to make the corrections, but wanted a formal notice in writing detailing the issues, which he has yet to receive. So they shut me down before affording me the right to due process. Well, I don't know, standing on this, I've got to have it in writing. I don't know if that's such a good idea after all. The shooting range closed its doors Friday, the day after 3 Rev Tax inspectors issued the notice of violation. The closure has resulted in a loss of business, as well as a closure of the only resource available to people to safely practice gun use, according to Sablon. We did the numbers, and we stand to lose between $10,000 and $15,000 in revenue. We train judges, senators, we train prominent business people. We train a ton of local citizens that want to do the responsible thing when it comes to gun ownership, and that's get basic firearms handling training. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we probably have 250 customers who are scheduled to be on range for one thing or another. Among the events that needed to be canceled as a result of the shutdown were a shooting competition with 30 competitors, U.S. Marshals Training Service, which would have certified 8 law enforcement officers, as well as 40 tourists scheduled to use the range. A Change.org petition was started by Sportsland Shooting Range in response to the closure. My girls put together a petition on social media to garner support, and it's growing as we speak. We want to show the senators and other officials this is not just a family business. This is a business the community uses, as well as a tourist industry. Sportsland Shooting Range was among the businesses to receive a local government assistance recently to aid in reopening after the typhoon. Sportsland got a grant from GVB with Governor Carl Gutierrez's recent aid program. It was a $10,000 grant to keep the range open. And here we are, shut down by the government's inaction. Because Sablon believes government corruption was at play in shutting down the range, he filed a complaint Friday with the Office of the Attorney General against Rev Tax and Land Management. Very interesting. So, as I understand it, in order to renew your business license, you have to get an endorsement from the Department of Land Management. He went to Land Management. They would not give him the endorsement. They apparently told him what was wrong. But he says, I've got to see that in writing. As a general rule, if you're dealing with the government, at the lowest level you can resolve something, the better off you are. But anyhow, that's what he did.
But did they tell him he had to resolve it first, or did they just say we're not going to?
We don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know.
But that's There's the other fork I see, or the other, what do they call the the little thing? I'm always at a loss for words as soon as the radio turns on. But why is it that they only told him when he went to renew, or did they announce it to him before he went up to renew his license?
Well, this is the image I get from listening to Ray this morning and here. He's just out, running around with his piece of paper. He's got to get signatures on it. He's done it since 2018, no problem. He goes to Land Management and he presents it to whoever the signature authority is, and the signature guy says, I can't do it. I'm not going to endorse it this year. One, you've got a temporary building on your land. That's in the story, right? And, that's the kind of thing we're on the lookout for. And two, I'm going to tell you this. And he tells him the reason that it can't be renewed. Maybe it's because the neighbors are complaining it's too noisy. Now, we heard on the show this morning, on Ray's show, that people in the facility are saying live rounds are flying onto our property. That's what we heard on the show.
Yeah, I heard a little bit about that.
Yeah. So what do you, once the official tells you that, what do you gain by having it in writing?
I see what you're saying, but I also understand the value of documentation. And it could be hearsay, but again, are we relying on agency to determine things?
Yes.
Like that? I know, but without any kind of documentation, it could just be on the whim of somebody.
It could be.
Is that proper?
Well,
or is that teeters on corruption?
So if he puts it in writing, does it change anything?
Or it might not even be happening. That's the thing. How do you prove it? How do you go to court with this when there's no documentation?
Different questions altogether.
Okay.
Totally different questions.
Got it.
But if that's what happened, if you want to memorialize something, and generally, people that do this are instantly cast as pests. They're really interested more in being a burr under your saddle than they are getting the kind of satisfaction they want. So you want to fight with somebody over getting his signature or getting something in writing. Which one is going to help you more?
The signature.
Yeah. But if you really want to memorialize it, what you do is you ask the person for his name, and you go home and you sit down in front of your word processor and you say, Dear Mr. Smith, this memorandum will memorialize the conversation that we had on the morning of so-and-so. I asked you blah, blah, blah. You said, etc., blah, blah, blah. Absent your correction of the record created herein, I proceed on the basis that it's true and correct. Thank you.
What was that terminology you used with Summerfleck, with your exhausting?
Administrative remedies, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
See, that's why this should also be a course credit listening to this show.
Absolutely. It's a lot of good practical advice here. Now, as far as the law is concerned, you can do all of this stuff about petitions, etc. But if you really want to get something done, get yourself a lawyer. Because oftentimes a letter from a lawyer unlocks the logjam. My client, John Sablon, told me that when he presented himself, you would not, blah, blah, blah. Sablon has corrected the defects. I am suggesting that you take necessary action to provide the endorsement forthwith to avoid further complications in this matter. Your pal, I Cheatham, lawyer. Okay, now, there may very well be some law in the books. I have never had any experience in this area, but I am aware of something called the administrative adjudication law, which, like so many other things, is always referred to by the wrong title. People are always talking about AAA, the Administrative Adjudication Act, but it's not. It's the law, and it has two parts. The second part deals with rulemaking. The first part deals with adjudication. And here's the applicable part, maybe the applicable parts. So this is at 5 GCA section 9200. The procedure for any agency shall be conducted pursuant to the provisions of this chapter, and any proceeding before an agency in which legal rights, duties, or privileges of specific parties are required by law to be determined before an agency hearing. Well, if Sablon has met all the requirements for a business license, it is, in fact, a legal right. It's not a privilege. A hearing to determine whether an authority, license, privilege, or right should be conditioned, limited, suspended, or revoked shall be initiated by filing an accusation. The accusation shall be a written statement of charges, which shall set forth in ordinary and concise language the acts or omissions which the respondent, that's Sablon, is charged, and the statutes and regulations which the respondent is alleged to have violated. So the way that the hearing that must be held when a government authority, whether an authority, license, etc., should be conditioned, limited, suspended, or revoked, is initiated by an accusation by the person at that agency. And it's got to set forth the acts or omissions which the respondent, that Sablon, is charged. And then 9202, statement of the issues. A hearing to determine whether an authority, license, or privilege, or right should be granted, issued, or denied, renewed, shall be initiated by filing a statement of issues. The statement of issues shall be a written statement specifying the statutes and regulations which the respondent must show compliance by producing proof at the hearing. In addition, any particular matters which have come to the attention of the initiating party and which would authorize the denial of the agency action thought. So there you go. Now, since whoever is not doing what he's supposed to is acting under color of law by not acting, it's possible that a violation of a civil right occurred, which could make that agent, that person, liable for a violation of John Sablon's civil rights. So, John, get yourself to a lawyer. Don't screw around with petitions. Don't go running to the legislature. unless you got a lot of time to waste. Get yourself a lawyer and see what you got under the administrative adjudication law. I'm really interested in this for a couple reasons. One, I don't like arbitrary and capricious government actions. Even if the citizen does something that I don't see the efficacy of, like demanding something in writing, I don't like to see arbitrary and capricious action. And this has the earmarks of an arbitrary and capricious action. Now, question here whether this lies with the Department of Rev Tax or with the Department of Land Management. But a good way would be to sort it out, have your lawyer sort it out. But I don't like to see this kind of action on the part of the government where they just say, we're not going to do it, and we're not going to tell you why we're not going to do it. We just don't want to do it. And then second, I went out there and took the firearms training. It's a well-run outfit, I'll tell you, and it's not a nickel-dime outfit. They've obviously put a lot of money into building that place and building it right. And that the training that you can get through that agency, which is both book learning and also hands-on with a pistol, is first class. And they've got a good store out there where you can buy guns, ammo, and cleaning equipment, everything you need. It's a real valuable addition to the community.
Is this is in Dedido? In what area?
Yeah, it is. It's out in the NCS area, Dedido.
Oh, okay. Oh, I hear it all the time.
Off Route 3.
Yeah. I have relatives in that area.
Yeah. Now, on this thing about live rounds have come into our property. I don't know exactly what happened. I don't know anybody that lives out that way, but consider this hypothesis. Now, it's been there since 1982, and I suspect that guns have made as much noise since 1982 as they do right now. So it's been noisy. It's been noisy for a long, long time. It's kind of late to start kvetching about it now. But let's say that that there's a person out there that really wants to make something out of this. So he noses around and figures, well, and does a little research and finds out that the business license has to be renewed every year, and finds out who the endorsing agencies are in the business license. So let's say he goes to land management, and he probably has to talk to a half dozen people. He finally finds somebody who will give him a darn good listening to, and he said, you shouldn't allow that shooting range out there in Dedido, Sportsland. That shouldn't be allowed to operate. It's too noisy, and it just very disturbs everybody in our neighborhood. Can't you do something about that? And land management guy says, no, that's not the kind of rules that we enforce. Sorry, you're going to have to come up with something else. A couple days later, the guy comes back and says, live rounds coming into our property. Now, how do you prove or disapprove that? You don't. Is it a serious allegation? Is it going to stop and make everybody pay attention? Did it work? If that's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now Doug Moylan, and you can't blame Doug. You know, the worst possible thing we want to happen is for someone to get hit by a stray round from that rifle range, from that shooting range, especially after the Attorney General's on notice of the potential for live rounds. So I don't know how this will ever be straightened out.
Interestingly, I have anecdotal story for that firing range, if this is the same place. I've been going to my relative's place for years, and only recently I started hearing that firing range, and I thought it was new. But I think what's happening is because of all the development around there, a lot of trees and stuff, and a lot of the buffering of the noise has gone away.
A typhoon could do that.
Pre-typhoon. Yeah.
I mean, this last one.
Well, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Got somebody on the line, Jose. Maybe it's Mr. Sablan. Yeah, we lost him.
Call back.
Please call back, sir. We'll get you on the air right away. I'll give it a minute here.
Let's take a real quick break.
Yeah, let's take a break and give that caller a chance to call back. I want to pursue this as much as I can.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. Their services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
Okay, I've got John Sablan on the line. I've got Frenchie on the line. Before I chat with John Sablan, I do want to read one more thing here, and that's 5 GCA 9204. The agency acquires jurisdiction of the respondent by service of a copy of the accusation or statement of issues, or if the hearing is held at the request of the respondent, by filing a petition for a hearing by the respondent. So John Sablan can demand a hearing also. Okay, let's find out what John's got to say. Tell me all about it, John.
Hey, Judge, how are you doing, sir?
Good.
I sincerely appreciate your comments. I've been listening to your show on the radio. You know, it sounds like a song, but yes, I've been listening to you for a while, and I appreciate your take on this issue that we're having.
Well, tell me everything I need to know, John.
Oh man, where do we start? So the article was very well written by Miss Jolene from the Post. Very well written, very accurate. Basically, what you're saying and what you're hearing, that's the gist of everything that I've been stating. Now, the notice of violation that shut me down from Reverend Tax is due to a non-renewal of the business license. But it's not because I didn't renew my business license. We were in the process since June. And Reverend Tax put a little stipulation, a little note on the business license stating, for the first time, by the way, stating that I have to be re-inspected by certain agencies before they would renew my license. So when we went through that process, we first started with DPW, and that's where the runaround started, and the delay and the lack of answers. So I'm talking to the chief inspector because they wouldn't on my application, and he couldn't give me a straight answer, telling me that, well, you know, it's a noise complaint, so they're looking into it. I can't sign off on this now. And even though I pleaded to him, like, you know, can't you just issue my license, and when everything gets settled down and or your fact finding is complete, then you can come back to me and do a revocation of my license. But
let me jump in here for a second, John. So somebody at Public Works told you that they couldn't approve it because of the noise?
Well, he mentioned that there is a noise complaint and that the director was looking into it and that they couldn't sign off on it at that time. So I let it sit for maybe a week or so, and and went back to get answers, and then he pushed the blame onto DLM, saying that it's really not our fault. It's over at land management now. So then I go over to land management, and I try to get a meeting with Joe Borja, and many calls and many emails that I sent to request to meet with him went unanswered. I also requested to see the deputy director, same thing, unanswered. I finally got on the phone with the chief planner, Celine Cruz, I believe is her last name, and basically she told me what I mentioned in the report about the temporary structure. Now I'm aware of that temporary structure, and I didn't dispute that or refute that claim about not building it with a permit without a permit, because I did. A contractor told me that we don't need a building permit for a temporary structure. However, when DPW came by, they told me I do need a permit because the public uses it. So I said, okay, how do I do it? And he told me that I needed a certain as-built plans and then funnel the application through the process. And then when it ended up at DLM, that's when it got stopped. So they're telling me that it had to go through the GLUC. I said, okay, let me have it in writing so that, I have something definitive in writing from you guys. I can correct it. I don't want to tear down a $40,000 structure on somebody's verbal words, words, and then come back and find out that it's actually not the issue, it's something else, which is what happened just recently with this situation. So if somebody up in the government had a meeting with Joe Borja and said that, the issue is these 4 conditions that were on the original conditional use application that the TLUC back then made, and one of them was a GPD certification. The other one was a fence and clearance from the Air Force and NRA certification. So those were the original conditions set forth by the TLUC back in 1982. And those have all been complied with because the company or the business was in operation since 1982-83. Now, Joe Borja tells this contact of mine that John just needs to go through the GLUC and state his case, telling that it's all been complied with. And I said, wait a minute. Attorney friend of mine told me that the law does not require me to go through the GLUC twice for the same business on the same property. As long as it's the same business on the same property, we don't need to go through this issue. And it's the first time that I ever heard this requirement by BLM. So it's a good thing I didn't tear down the structure, because now they changed the requirements, or they changed the actual reason that they didn't want to sign. But again, nothing in writing, all verbal.
If I were to use my imagination, this is how it sounds like to me, John. It sounds like someone went and whispered in the ear of the director of Rev Tax. Let's call him the noise complainer, okay?
Yeah, and you're not wrong.
The noise complainer whispers in the ear of the director of Rev Tax, who then puts this little note, sends you this little note. You got to get all these endorsements that you haven't had to get since 2018, since you bought the place.
Correct.
And in the meantime, of course, the word goes out to these folks. It's too noisy, and one of our friends doesn't like the noise. So this guy probably shouldn't get his business license. But I can't, Director of Rev Tax says, I have to have a reason.
Right.
Yeah, that could have happened. Now, here's, John, I hope you will hire counsel, because a sunshine law request could yield a lot. You send sunshine law requests to the 3 directors involved and asked them for all correspondence within the agency dealing with Sportsland shooting range going back to the beginning of June. And it may very well be that there's email traffic or WhatsApp traffic or something like that would be quite incriminating. If and I don't know, no, I'm just hypothesizing. You know, that's what lawyers do. They look at a fact situation and say, here's hypothesis 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they check and see if any of those things actually happen, and that's how a lawyer would combat this. So that's another avenue. But as I pointed out a little earlier, you have, the way I read the administrative adjudication law, you have the ability to challenge the Department of Land Management and put them on their proofs. And if they are acting arbitrarily and capriciously, it could be a heavy burden for them.
Yes, I am aware of those routes that we can take. You know, I was really trying to avoid all of this going to court, and I really don't want to do that. But it seems like that's where we're headed, and you know, we are looking into securing legal counsel to challenge this further, because every day we just lost a whole bunch of business starting since Friday, and it's not just my business. There's five other Guam small businesses lost business today. 2 of them tourist related. They bring their sole business is bringing tourists to Guam and making them shoot at a shooting range. And of course, we are now the only outdoor shooting range available to the public. So yes, a lot of people have lost business, not just myself. We probably lost a total of 250 walk-in customers over the weekend. Training for the federal government law enforcement agencies. We lost a couple of clients there. U.S. Navy SOCOM was just here on Thursday to inspect our range, to be able to try and get a contract to use the range for training. That's probably not going to happen. It's a whole chain of events that, you know, this lack of a license is causing. And you know, we're a small business, family owned, women owned, veteran owned, and like the article read, Governor Gutierrez gave me a grant to help keep our business open, and that's down the drain.
Well, here's something else to think about. I mentioned this earlier, John. You are already anticipating going to court, et cetera. You know, sometimes a well-worded letter from a lawyer opens up a logjam, and it might very well be that a properly worded letter to Joe Borah might be all it needs. But there's only one way to find out. Now, something else that I think you want to keep in mind is that you want to make sure whoever does your books keeps accurate track of what you just talked to me about lost business, because that, if push came to shove, that very well could be the measure of damages. So you want to keep good close track on that. Now, I took the firearms training course out there, and if I were the inspector, I'd give you guys an A grade.
Well, I appreciate that.
Although I'd never make it at public health because I actually did the inspection. Yeah, and it looks to me, you know, the way the berms are set up, and then your own insistence on safe procedures out there, it'd be hard to imagine how a round could escape that firing range at such a trajectory that it wouldn't fall, you know, a half mile away if it even could escape the range. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. So because the complaints have been a thorn on our side for a while, several years already, we started reporting gunshots, that we hear outside of our shooting range, just in the neighboring properties on the left and on the right. So every time my RSOs, my range safety officers, hear a shot outside the range, we call it into GPD. I have timestamps and I have officers' names who I reported them to, just to keep a log to show that, you know, we built the range to, like you said, keep the rounds in, but there are people outside of the range that are shooting, maybe hunting, maybe pest control, I don't know. But there's nothing to stop the bullet from continuing to travel if they miss their target. And,
so what I'm talking about this is how high are those berms? 20, 25?
The bullet impact berm is a little bit more than 15 feet. NRA guidelines list 8 feet for the side berms and 15 feet for the back berm. We followed those guidelines, but during construction, I asked the contractor if there's any excess material, put it on top, pack it in good. You know, so it's probably closer to 18 feet. Right now, I haven't done a final measurement, but it's definitely minimum 15 feet.
And how far is the berm from the place where the shooter would shoot his rifle?
So we have 3 bays. We do have a 100-yard bay, we have a 25-yard bay, and a 50-yard bay. All the berms are the same height, 15. They're all separate berms for each of those bays.
Yeah.
Yep.
So my producer, Jose, is an ace on trigonometry. Jose, if we're talking about a 100-yard range and an 18-foot berm, what angle would that round fly over the berm at?
I haven't done the trigonometry, but we have RSOs on our range, especially the 100-yard, to ensure that all customers are compliant with the parallel to the ground and not handling firearms in an unsafe manner. Flags are always in. They're always looking for careless handling of firearms, and you know, our goal is to prevent any of that from ever happening.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, John, is this: that even if a person wanted to and were able to, that angle has got to be at least a 30-degree angle. The trajectory of a round clearing the berm from 100 yards away, the neighbors aren't going to know about that. It's not going to be the neighbor. That's not going to come. It's not going to come in somebody's yard that lives, 50 yards. Yeah, right behind the berm. So,
correct.
You know, my own theory of this is that you got somebody who is really pulling out the stops because he doesn't like the noise. So, if I could be of assistance, if that person would come forward, I will chip in with Jose and we'll buy him some noise suppressing headset.
Well, you know, Judge, I think we had a Zoom meeting last year with land management where the individual actually came on to the Zoom meeting and made his list of complaints known. And I believe his base complaint is due to the devaluation, or he claims the devaluation of his property. And he had plans to develop the property, maybe put some houses up and sell them or rent them out. And he's stating that because the shooting range is operational, now nobody's going to buy his property or buy his houses if he should sell them, or he's going to lose money if because the values drop. But that is actually on record as one of the complaints that he made.
So as we say when we're reading a mystery novel, the plot thickens. because there's a financial dimension. It's not just an irritation. There's a financial dimension to this. And you've got the name, rank, and serial number of the complainant too, I suspect, huh, John?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, very good. Thank you very much for sharing that with you. And John, I wish you the best of luck. I'm impressed with what you're doing out there. I think I've been around long enough to recognize a well-run business when I see one, and you got one. So good luck, John.
Thank you very much, Judge. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate your support. And my family and I thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Okay, John. So long. So Repeat even chimes in, and Repeat said there is the official misconduct angle too, when a government uses their authority to benefit himself or another, or refrains from performing an official duty to benefit himself or another. Yeah, I remember that one too. So we got a lot going here. We're going to come back and we're going to get the French take on this.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
Okay, so here we go. We got Frenchie on the line. Tell me about the firing range, Frenchie.
Yes. Good afternoon, Bob. How are you?
Fine.
Well, it was very instructive to listen to Mr. Sablon. I have used the service in the past, and they are very professional. One thing that, I've been involved in shooting for my whole life, and especially in the United States, and but not exclusively. And one thing I've learned being involved with shooting clubs and things is that, of course, the noise abatement issue, it's always one of the first things that people that are anti-gun come at the clubs from that perspective. And there are two industries that are victim of this. One is small airports, where is private airplanes, and the other one is shooting ranges. And a lot of time, those businesses, small airports and shooting ranges, have been in business for many years, even though they changed ownership, before there ever was homes around them. So, because when they were built, there was usually almost no homes at all. But then people, want to make money when they sell their homes, and they complain about the noise. So that's one issue. The other issue is that you cannot underestimate the number of anti-gun people out there, what I call the gun confiscator crowd. And I have an experience when I live in the Bay Area, in San Francisco Bay Area, and actually when I live in the city of San Francisco, I used to go and shoot my handguns at the Shot and Rod club that was owned by the city of San Francisco. And it was closed by your great friend, former mayor and now Senator Dianne Feinstein, under the guise that bullets were flying from the club, handgun bullets were flying from the gun club a mile and a half away over a hill that was 300 feet tall. So when you have those kind of arguments, and you did the trigonometric study there at the club, you have groups in the U.S. and also here on Guam that are anti-gun, and they will advocate to their members. And I remember reading, especially in a group called Moms Demand Action, which is financed by the billionaire in New York that is very anti-gun. And they say, you need to complain. You need to say you have bullets arriving in your house and so on, and you have to gather them and show, and so you have right now at the government of Guam, don't forget, a governor who vetoed the noise suppressor legislation that was passed by the senator with the intention of, the noise abatement from people shooting around other people's house. So we are not dealing with an administration that's going to be honest about this. And like you pointed out, it sounds like somebody went to put a bug in somebody's ear in the administration, and then now they're trying to find justification not to renew that license, which is a shame. I use another outfit called Sound of Freedom, and to renew my my certification for my concealed carry. And they have a small shooting range, and they have a neighbor which is about 3/4 of a mile away who was complaining to the police department that he had bullets arriving on his property. The police came in with the mayor, and they realized that the shooting range was facing in the opposite direction than the one that the complainant was saying the bullets were coming from. So, there are a lot of people that have not the best intention and that are not always honest in their complaints. They, for whatever reason, may it be commercial, financial, or just activism, anti-gun activism. And so I think the recommendation you made of getting a lawyer are well-founded, and it's unfortunate that a small business like Mr. Sablon and others have to be held hostage by people that are not held accountable within the administration. And I think, if he can show the business loss and how much it would cost if they could not justify their action and that it was capricious and arbitrary, that could cost the government a lot of money. And if it has to be, I hope that's the direction it will go. But it shows again that despite having the most stringent gun ownership regulation on Guam, except maybe for CNMI, in the United States, we also have people that just don't want you to exercise your constitutional right on this island, and you cannot underestimate those groups of people because they do exist. And we've seen Senator Perez stopping the air gun shooting range at a proposal for the new high school in Geo, and not knowing that air guns are not firearms, and those people are radicals, and they don't care about. Again, it's racism. They don't care about the truth; they just care about the narrative, and that's very unfortunate. And I really wish Mr. Sablon all the best in fighting this, because he has a good operation there, and we hope he will be able to continue operating.
Well put, Frenchie. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, big halftime show. We'll go straight to the Hope Cristobal show.
is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Remembering the victims. I'm Sue Guzman, Fox News. Heartbreak throughout the Jacksonville community as a racially motivated shooting leaves 3 people dead and the suspect turning the gun on himself. Fox's Jill Nato.
The shooter's been identified as 21-year-old Ryan Palmer. He bought guns legally in recent months, even though he had been involuntarily committed for a mental health exam in 2017. And Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters told a news conference the gunman left behind writings.
The manifesto is quite frankly, the diary of a madman. He was just completely irrational.
The sheriff said the shooter was working under a disgusting ideology of hate as he targeted black people at a Dollar General store. Waters also told reporters the gunman was acting alone. Jill Nato, Fox News.
President Biden issuing a statement Sunday condemning the killings. All eyes are on Tropical Storm Idalia, which may make landfall as a hurricane in Florida Tuesday or Wednesday. Many residents preparing. Matt Tresa with Fox TV affiliate WOFL is more from Winter Springs.
Michael Demery remembers the damage Hurricane Ian did to his home.
We had 3 feet of water in our house on Ian, so we're going to make sure we have more sandbags than we had last time and do more prep.
Demery and dozens of others showed up at Winter Springs Central Winds Park to fill up sandbags, getting ready for the chance of bad weather this week.
I'm not going to take a chance after 3 months of everything destroyed in my house.
The city allowed county residents to fill 15 sandbags per household. Officials asked them to bring their own shovels, gloves, and be ready to fill and load the bags themselves. City staff recommended bringing a partner to help because filled sandbags could weigh up to 35 pounds.
Hurricane, tropical storm, and storm surge watches have already been issued for parts of Florida. America's listening to Fox News.
Are you tired of boring jobs that leave you feeling like a broken record? Well, get ready to tune into the most exciting opportunity of a lifetime. Choice Broadcasting. That Star 101, The Boss and The Point, is searching for enthusiastic salespeople and radio DJs to join our incredible team.
Salespeople, listen up. Are you tired of selling random gadgets or dull office supplies?
At Choice Broadcasting, you'll be selling airwaves. That's right, folks. We're talking about selling the magic of music.
And for you music lovers and microphone masters out there, we need DJs who can set the airwaves on fire. Have you always dreamt of being the voice that electrifies the masses? Look no further. We've got the stage where your talent can shine brighter than the sun.
So if you've got the charm, the wit, and the desire to be a part of an extraordinary team, grab your headphones and join us today. Call 888-RDIO or 888-7346 for your application.
Choice Broadcasting, where sales and radio collide and extraordinary careers are born.
A helicopter crash claims the lives of 3 U.S. Marines off the coast of Australia.
The Osprey, it is the primary transport aircraft for the Marines. It allows for vertical takeoff and landings while traveling in the air like a turboprop. Since 2012, the tilt-rotator aircraft has seen 6 fatal crashes, causing at least 19 Marine Corps deaths. Now, this is the second aircraft crash of the week for the Marine Corps. On Thursday, Major Andrew Metler died in an F-18 Hornet crash during a training exercise near San Diego. And the commanding general of the 2nd Marine Aircraft Wing there stated, "We mourn the loss of one of our brothers who was devoted to the Marine Corps mission, and it is our duty to continue forward in a manner that would reflect his devotion."
Fox's Alexandria Hoff. Russian authorities have identified the remains found at the site of a deadly plane crash last week, and they're confirming that the leader of the Wagner Group was among the 10 people killed.
The committee responsible for looking into the incident explained that forensic testing matched the flight manifest that included Wagner leader Yevgeny Prigozhin and his deputy Dmitry Utkin. Russian officials have collected debris from the crash site, including 2 black boxes that should include flight data as well as audio recordings from the cockpit. As questions remain about the exact cause of the crash, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov denied any involvement of Russian President Vladimir Putin, calling speculation a complete lie. American officials believe a bomb or similar act of sabotage brought down the business jet, not a surface-to-air missile as originally thought. On Thursday, Russian President Putin sent his condolences to Prigozhin's Prigozhin's family, explaining that he'd known him since the early 1990s. The Russian leader added that the former mercenary general made serious mistakes in his life, but got results when asked.
Fox's Trey Yingst and Simone Biles making history. The gymnastics great winning a record 8th U.S. championship Sunday night. The 26-year-old Biles posting an all-around two-day total of 118.40. That is 4 points clear of runner-up Shalise Jones. I'm Sue Gussman. America's listening to Fox News.
We don't want you standing along lines. It's just not right. So Bank Pacific provides excellent online and mobile banking and 24/7 access to your money with our Visa debit cards. And if you want to visit any of our 4 offices, please do so, because we're short on lines and long on service, open Fridays until 6 and on Saturday mornings. Goodbye to the frustration of waiting in long lines. Say hello to Bank Pacific. It'd be our privilege. Bank Pacific, member FDIC.
Half a day. This is Clara Manglona from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
So there we go. The last picture there. Pop up that last picture again, Jose. Yeah, there you go. That's Bob and Jeff out there at Pirates Cove. I want to remind you once again, Jeff's Pirates Cove sponsors systemic racism, which we'll get to in a little while. But I always like to air this picture. Jeff and I look so much alike. It's good to see us both at the same time. Jeff's the guy in the black tailgater shirt. I'm the tall, good-looking fellow in the Pirates Cove shirt. You can tell us apart. Okay, Jose, are we ready to go with the Hope Cristobal show?
We are ready to go.
Colonizer! You're nothing but a white colonizer. That's who you are. Colonization. The same thing as slow murder. You're a murderer. That's who you are.
Sir, you need to go. You can't be policing people here and telling people how to protest or what to protest for. You need to go. You need to go. I'm against this. And that's cool, but you cannot be policing people and telling them how to protest and what to advocate for. She has a right to yell.
I'm an indigenous tomorrow. I have more rights here than you are. You came here because of the structures of colonialism, asshole. Tayo mamalaw how sige drudo ni tano. Bitaw taw tano how. Baho bini taw taw tano. Baho bini malahoda. Baho na short na kay gitu bini. Hago tata na short mo bini. Ako sa manila. You need to leave.
You need to go.
Please.
You need to get out of here.
Please, sponsor.
Get out of here. When I get a chance, go.
Thank you. Thank you, sponsor. Please. No, you cannot.
What happened, man?
Well, he confronted me.
What did he say?
Telling me I shouldn't be here. I support Black Lives Matter. It's part of the colonialistic systemic racism. And I came here to support these people. He's a white man that has come here. And he continues the legacy of colonialism. He continues to fight people, individuals, my goodness. I'm a former senator. I authored the Commission on Decolonization. Hello. Hi, Mamalo.
We are proud of you, Auntie.
So just Malasi.
Proud of you.
So there you have it. We've seen it so many times before, but it never loses its shock value, does it?
Never.
And by way of background, Hope Cristobal is the chairman of the Chamorro Language Commission. She is the face and voice of the separati here on the island. The folks that would like Guam to be separate from the United States, a separate sovereignty and independent country. Can you imagine what it would be like if Guam were independent and Hope and her cohorts were running the island?
It'd be loud.
It would be loud. It would indeed be loud. So I'm going to run this every Monday from now on. If you have friends who haven't seen it, make sure you give them a heads up right after the beginning of the second half of Tall Tales. Every Monday, we run the Hope Cristobal Show. It doesn't require a whole lot of comment from me. It pretty much speaks for itself. Well, let's see. I got somebody in the green room wanting to come in here. It's R. Carl. Probably wants to come in and talk about Hope. I just want to say something about the firing range before we leave it, and adding on to the other reasons that I'm in favor of that outfit continuing. You know, there is a danger with people who can own pistols, especially, and not have sufficient training to know how to use them safely. And that's a real void that range provides. A really good training program for people that want to arm themselves with pistols. So even if you don't want a concealed permit, I would suggest once they get back open that you go out there and sign up for their course, because it's well worth the time and it's a really good idea. Okay, so now we've got R. Carl who wants to talk about the separati. Remember, R. Carl is the most dangerous man in the room. You know, it's often been said, Jose, that when Thomas Sowell gives a speech, he opens it up with a quote from R. Carl. Tell us more, R. Carl.
I only wish, but no. Sowell is a fountain of thought-provoking quotes. But the reason why I called in is because I've really become very fascinated by the movement to separate from America. Ever since a friend of mine sent me that link to the study group, Fanatu, Radical Readings, discussing the most famous work of Italian Marxist Antonio Gramsci. That really hooked me. And I started pulling through a little piece of thread. And the more I pulled, the more fascinating it became. But, in looking at what is happening the last few years, there's nothing organic. There's nothing spontaneous about this movement. It is strategic. It is planned. The people at the top are not dumb. They are academics. They have above average IQ. And to not take them seriously, I think, is extremely dangerous. And I'd like to share something I recently posted on my Facebook page about what I see as at least a three-pronged strategy to separate Guam from America. The first part of that strategy is to totally eliminate one option, and that is staying a part of the United States. And the Commission on Decolonization, which, as you pointed out, should be more accurately called the Commission on Chamorro Independence. I lost my train of thought for a second. It's to one of their strategies is to remove that option completely, for the reason that if we did that, we would still remain a colony, and of course that is something they don't want to have happen. But what they don't say is that the only viable option that they presented, and you've said this many times, you're the one that clarified this for me, that the only viable option of the three, statehood, free association, and so-called independence, is independence, separation from America. And you've pointed out the reasons. Statehood is virtually impossible because of our location and size. Free association is a political and legal impossibility because of our status. And that only leaves one thing, one option, and that is separation from America. The second prong that I see in this strategy to separate from America is to try to restrict the vote to a fraction of the total population of Guam. And to me, and you can clarify this, I'm sure you've got other thoughts that would be better than mine, but I see it as one of the reasons is it's much smaller to emotionally manipulate a smaller group than a much larger group and a diverse group. And the third prong that I see is, and the most important prong I think, is for the leadership and the followers of this movement to make every effort to grow resentment among this group, people with Chamorro blood like myself, to grow resentment among this group toward America, the military, white people, outsiders, etc., etc. You know, the usual villains that the left likes to paint these days. So that, you know, that's just something I've been thinking about, you know, and over time, and to me, it's just become clearer that this is very strategic. This is all planned. The end objective is to separate from America and form a what will eventually be a Marxist socialist form of government with concentration of power in a small elite of central planners who will plan every aspect of people's lives that are on Guam. And if worse comes to worse, you know, that power will eventually be concentrated in one person, and that would be extremely dangerous. But that's just some thoughts I had on the subject. I'd appreciate it if you'd add anything you want to.
Well, try and stop me, Carl. All right. Thanks for chiming in, Carl. Yeah, Carl has picked up a theme that, you know, that I have a song that I've sung many times on the show, going all the way back to 1922 and the Frankfurt School, when a group of philosophers in Germany decided that Karl Marx had it wrong, that workers of the world were not going to unite, that there would not be a violent revolution where the working class overthrew the capitalists, that this was not inevitable. In fact, it was basically impossible. When World War I came along and we found that French and German workers could slay one another with carefree abandon, the Frankfurt School guys decided this isn't going to work. What we've got to do is we've got to work on cultural Marxism. We've got to divide people into identity politics, sexual anarchy, etc., and try to destroy the ideals upon which the Western civilization was founded. And they've been very successful at doing that. Antonio Gramsci came along in the 1930s. Mussolini, who started out as a socialist, wound up as a fascist, although there isn't a whole lot of difference between the two. Threw Gramsci in prison, where he wrote something called the Prison Diaries, which has been a textbook for neo-Marxists, for cultural Marxists. And he said, what we've got to do is start the long march through the institutions. I think it was one of the Frankfurt School guys who said, we've got to make Western civilization stink. We've got to bring out all the flaws in Western civilization, identity politics, divide people into very small groups that are antagonistic to one another, create two separate classes, the marginalized and the top class, the kind of the victimizers and the victims, and convince everybody except the white male that they are victims and that they've got to unite and take this long march through the institutions so that they could clear out our constitutional republic and substitute a Marxist regime for it. They're smart enough to know that people are not going to change a situation that they think is working for them. And obviously, no country in the world has ever worked so well for its people than the United States of America. It's certainly a record setter. But in order to do away with it, we have to engage in this cultural Marxism, and we see it everywhere, the sexual anarchy, the identity politics, a president who says, I'm going to choose somebody based on qualification. She's got to be black, and so on. The whole St. George Floyd phenomenon, and on and on and on. And what Carl is alluding to is that group that he got the Facebook recording from. We're talking about we've got to make solidarity with the gay groups and these other disenchanted groups on the island, citing to Antonio Gramsci. So, you know, this whole separati movement, this is not some spontaneous thing that a bunch of kids decided to do when they were barbecuing and drinking beer. And as usual, these radical ideas come not from Joe Sixpack, but from the intellectuals, the 21st century Karl Marxes, Theodore Adorno's, Herbert Marcuse, and so on. So Carl is absolutely right. We underestimate them at our peril. And that's why I keep running Hope every Monday, just to wake up, you guys. If you don't know yet, the separati want to pull Guam away from the United States so they can establish their own Marxist paradise. And of course, they would not include unincorporated territory as one of the choices that they would foster for Chamorro self-determination, because it works too well. So they've got the other three choices, only one of which is real, and that's independence. So let's all be on our guard here. This is not a good situation.
I kind of even feel it's a little more diabolical than that, and just reading from the comments, I got this understanding that I don't really want to mark anybody in a pejorative way, not a pejorative way, but in a condescending way. But it almost feels like there's a lot of useful idiots, on both sides also, because it does feel like we're being played. There is no solution that the separati promotes. There is a lot of contention and there's a lot of division, and that just breeds constant chaos, a perpetual chaos. And so it feels like they're not looking for the end game. They're just looking to perpetuate the chaos. And there's people that are on the very top, the ones that are in charge of communications, the ones in charge of financial institutions, the ones in charge of academics that seem to be pulling these strings. And it makes you seem to wonder what's the real end game. And a lot of people in the theological side and the God-fearing side have an understanding of where we really have our foundation and what we're really up against. Don't mean to be more dire, but that's what I'm looking at, because it doesn't seem that they have any solution, just a lot of chaos.
Well, and that is the end game. As Rudy Dutschke said back in the 1960s, the issue is never the issue. The issue is always the revolution. So, and if you are a real Marxist, you believe that the Marxist revolution never ends. It's always ongoing. It has to be worldwide and it has to be perpetual. So the chaos is exactly the end game. Things would be so chaotic that people would look for other solutions. And it's the same way with the Neil Weirs and these and the other folks. Oh, the insular cases. Well, okay. Right now, Guam does not have representation in Congress or the Electoral College. How are you going to fix that? Well, overrule the insular cases. Then what happens? Well, then there won't be insular cases.
Did I tell you about the racial language in the insular cases?
Uh-huh.
It's just about stirring up outrage without really offering anything in return.
So if you wanted a situation where Guam had representation in Congress and the Electoral College with its extremely small population, you would have to come up with a creative amendment to the United States Constitution. Something like, Guam gets one voting delegate to the House and one delegate to the Senate, and that way we'd have 2 electoral votes. But do you know how hard it is to amend the United States Constitution? It's only been done 27 times because you need 3/4 vote in each house of the, 2/3 vote in each house of Congress, and then 3/4 of the states have to ratify. Now, how much clout do 154,000 people living on an island in the far West Pacific have when it comes to amending the Constitution? It's just not going to happen. Okay, I got some folks here in the green room. Let me see what we got. We got Kofa Joe and Repeat. Kofa Joe wants to talk about being woke. Kofa Joe, you're the last guy I would ever expect to be woke. Go ahead.
Am I on?
Can you hear me?
No, I can't.
Here's how I go. Let me refresh your recollection, Kofa Joe. I'll be talking and I'll carry on. I'll enter into a subject and I'll lay a foundation for your remark. And after I've laid the foundation, I'll say something like, "Tell us about it, Kofa Joe," or elaborate. We don't, Kofa Joe, we don't have to do this. Hi, Bob, how are you? I'm fine. How it's supposed to flow so that I lead you to the water, and as soon as you get there, you bend over and take a sip. So let's try it again, okay? Kofa Joe, can I say something here? Let's try it again, Kofa Joe. Okay, we've got Kofa Joe on the line. Kofa Joe is the last guy I would ever expect of being woke. I just don't think Kofa Joe is capable of that. Are you, Kofa Joe?
I'm going to confess to you, Bob. Sometimes that could be because I've listened to a lot of the Japanese occupation stories from others, and I will go against some.
Hey, Kofa Joe. Kofa Joe. Another suggestion: use your phone. What are you? We can't bake you out. Are you? Have you got something in your mouth, or is your phone?
I'm sorry.
Battery.
I apologize. Okay, so sometimes I could possibly sometimes I could be work, but most of the time I'm not. But I think we need to.
Kofa Joe, we're going to have to go to Wrigley Field because we can't figure out what you're trying to say. Bad connection. Call back after a repeat.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
So here we are, 7th inning stretch at Wrigley Field in Chicago. That means only got 2 more innings to go. And where am I here? There I am. Yeah, 2 more innings to go. And I'll be leaving the ballpark. I'll be heading for the clubhouse, take a shower, and head for home. But right now I've got Repeat on the line, and Repeat has as much of an understanding of the insular cases as, believe it or not, I do. That's quite a compliment. It's quite a compliment, Repeat. I don't hand that out very often. Repeat?
Yes, sir.
What are you doing? Pretending to be Kofa Joe?
No. I reside right next to JTM Ventress, the Sportland. I reside within earshot. And, I hear gunshots coming from their direction and coming from the opposite direction as well. So there's a lot of boomies out in this area, and I'm pretty sure there's some folks that like to go out and pop off some rounds. I know I used to catch people back in the day doing that. But the reason why I was calling is to sort of repeat one of the things that I always say about the insular cases, that Camille Weird's take on it is bass backwards, because when I read it many, many times, not all the cases, but just the main ones. And the theme that I'm getting is that, one, first of all, the contentions that the Constitution follows the flag is wrong. And the other thing is, like, look, we're dealing with alien folks, that's just a word at the time that they use for foreign. It just means foreign. We're dealing with foreign folks, that have come into the fold, and we ought not to shove our ways down their throat. They have a culture. Let them figure out what they want to do. That's, to me, what the insular cases stood for.
Interesting. And certainly that's the way it turned out, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, who are the benefactors of that? It's American Samoa, CNMI. We decided, well, I don't know if we decided, but we went with the Organic Act. So we have what's most closely resembles Constitution. But in American Samoa, of course, we know that their culture, their traditions trump American law. They can't hold office unless they are natives. They can't own land unless they are natives. In CNMI, you have to be NMI descent to own land. So they have been the benefactors of that philosophy of how Congress handle the territories.
Exactly. And Keneal Weird never gets into that. Even when the folks in America and Samoa, the government of America and Samoa, filed papers in his citizen at birth lawsuit saying, we don't want that. Please don't help us like that.
Yeah, and they've only been living with this for generations. But Neil Weir, who's still wet behind the ears, comes along and says, "No, I think I know what's better for you. Eat my poison food that I'm going to give you."
Yeah, and he's such a strong no, he's not an anti-colonialist. He's acting like a colonizer.
A savior.
A savior, yeah.
All right, I just wanted to, because we talk about the insular cases and the different aspects of it, but I just wanted to remind you, Uncle Bob, that, that is my take on it. The insular cases protects us. You like to talk about some of the other fringe benefits we get because of our status, which is true. We don't pay into the Fed. We don't do a lot of things, right? Federal income tax, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of benefits we get from our status. But, oh, by the way, we get to bring our plate to the table and says, fill her up, please.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's my rant for today.
Okay, good talking to you, Repeat. Okay, so let's take a peek at the card here. Of course, we got the public law section. Starting out with systemic racism, brought to us by Jeff's Pirates Cove. Yeah, there we go, Jeff's Pirates Cove. And moving on from systemic racism, the public law section, Department of Ed versus Summerfleck. Moneca versus the U.S. Congress. And this Moneca versus the U.S. Congress is really, really funny. Because, Jose, remember when I don't know if you ever played basketball?
A little bit.
Yeah, and you've probably watched some basketball. Yeah. There's a term called drawing a foul. So what that means is this. Let's say that one of the offensive players is he's driving toward the basket. And the defensive player maneuvers himself very surreptitiously in front of that charging offensive player who makes minimal contact with the defensive ball player who sprawls out on the floor like somebody had hit him in the face with a sledgehammer, hoping that the referee will see that, not exactly see what's going on and think, oh, there's a foul, because that person with the ball, the driver with the ball, charged into the defensive player. He blows his whistle. Obviously, the driver's not going to score. The guy who fell on the floor is going to get to shoot a free throw, etc. It's called drawing a foul. It doesn't even have to be a charging situation. You could be in a situation where you see a member of the other team backing up and not being aware of what's behind him. You go and stand behind him. He bumps into you, minimal contact, and you fall on the floor. You're looking to draw that foul. That's what the Protege Latexan guys are really good at, drawing fouls. I'll get to that. Then we've got Tello and Brown versus Tina. Tello has now become the voice of fiscal responsibility. And for that, I say, right on, Tello. Go get him. And then we've got still more on the whole self-insurance thing. There's just no end to that. Mark Mendiola, former chairman of the Board of Ed, disappointed with the department he formerly served as a board member. The latest on the United States of America versus Nauta, Doug versus aliens from last week's calendar, EPA versus Taki, and Georgia versus Trump, which I had to accelerate to the top of the calendar of the card, because I can really explain to you what all of the accounts of Trump's indictment in Georgia are. It's a matter of great, I think, public interest. Okay, so let's start out with systemic racism. I think everybody understands the drill here, that the rice in the bowl is orange, but the narrative says that it's red. So if you are gutsy enough to go to a fiesta and right after the grace is said and the chow line is open, and you announce to everybody, hey, you guys, see this rice right here? Let's not call it red rice anymore, because it ain't. It's orange. We need to start calling this orange rice. You'll be lucky if you leave that social occasion with your head. Because people are going to be calling, for, bring me the head of Robert Klitzkie. Yeah, because the narrative says the rice is red. We don't care what color it really is. So the facts and the truth say it's red, but it's actually orange. We run into that every day here on the show, where the narrative says the opposite from the truth, but the narrative often controls the truth. And I'm very happy to say the systemic racism is brought to us by Jeff's Pirates Cove. Let me show the folks my T-shirt here, Jose. Have you got it? Yeah, that's a Jeff's Pirates Cove T-shirt. You go out to Jeff's, you can buy all kinds of snazzy T-shirts in the gift shop. You can buy books. You can buy almost all of the really good Don Farrell books about Tinian. There's a gift shop. There is a large hall where you could hold large social gatherings. There's a museum that features Sergeant Yokoi, the last Japanese soldier to be captured at the end of World War II in 1972. And, of course, there's a great bar, a good restaurant, kind service, and the pirate himself. Can you show the folks a picture there? That's the pirate there wearing that tailgater T-shirt. So Pirates Cove is long on service. I don't know how many people Jeff's crew have saved because he got washed over the reef. And Jeff just routinely goes out there, and his gang goes out there and saves those lives. And it's a real public service for Jeff to sponsor systemic racism. It's an important part of their program. So once again, thank you, Jeff Pleadwell. Okay, moving right along then, next item on the card is DOE. Oh, wait a minute. Let me go through the public law section here. I'm looking at the agenda for the Commission on Chamorro Independence, euphemistically referred to as the Chamorro Yeah, as the Commission on Decolonization, and what a waste of time. And I have announced on the show here that unless the Commission on Decolonization is going to start talking about what their idea of an independent Guam would look like, they should shut the doors and go out of business. They're spending $1 million a year for nothing. And here's what they're talking about this time around. They're talking about financial report, old business, plebiscite update, and strategy discussion. Well, the plebiscite that you want to hold, this Chamorro-only plebiscite, is no go because it's unconstitutional. It's a violation of the 15th Amendment. You've known that for years. But, there's no such thing as a dead horse at the Chamorro Decolonization Commission. You're like little kids. You get the same toys out and play with them every single day and pretend that they're something different from what they really are. Then there's the Fanhita Conference. There's the Austronesian Forum, United Nations Update, Endangered Engagement Strategy and Visiting Mission, and so on. It's just a complete waste of time and your and my money with this Chamorro Decolonization Commission, very euphemistically named, of course. And then we've got the hospital authority that you can always count on breaking the law because they run item 3, old business, item 4, new business, and never tell you what the old business and new business is. No! Avoiding every action that they take. But there's something kind of slippery here, and that is if one were to look at it's item 7, way down at 5B1, as you were 5B2, Resolution 2030-60, resolution to waive Guam Board of Medical Examiners licensing requirement relative to the Associate Hospital Administrator of Medical Services position.
That's just volume 1.
It does, yeah. So what is the Associate Hospital Administrator of Medical Services? What does that person do? We don't know. But there are requirements put in place by the Guam Board of Medical Examiners licensing, and they have a requirement that that person be licensed by them. But the hospital board is saying, we don't want to do that, so we'll just waive their requirement and adopt this resolution that would allow us to hire this person that's obviously not qualified. So, of course, what's the first question that pops into your mind, Jose?
Somebody...
First base.
Yeah. Who's on first?
Exactly. Yeah. What?
I don't know.
Yeah, second base. So who's on first? Who is it? And what is that person's... What kind of expertise, pool, juice, whatever, does that person have to publish a notice like this where we're going to ignore a licensing requirement from the regulatory board that regulates this kind of employee and just go ahead and hire that person anyhow? This does not smell good at all.
It's like, why have that board to begin with then?
Exactly. Yeah. So we could rename it. We could, instead of calling it the Allied Health Professional, instead of calling it the Guam Board of Medical Examiners, we could call it the Guam Board of Jungle Rules. We'll obey the rules right up until the time that there's some kind of an inconvenience, and we can't hire somebody we really like. Is what it amounts to. Troy, I hope you're listening. I hope you can pick up on that. Next, we've got DOE versus Summerfleck. Now, Dan Summerfleck is a lawyer who represents two plaintiffs in a lawsuit against the superintendent of education, as you were the superintendent of school, superintendent of education and the Board of Education, because they violated the Every Child Act. Dan doesn't want to mention the names of the plaintiffs, so instead of using the names of the plaintiffs, which I'd ordinarily do, I just list him as the other party. So it's not Summerfleck v. DOE, it's DOE versus Summerfleck. This story ran in the Post. Temporary injunction in a lawsuit against Swanson and the Guam Board of Education denied by judge. This would be Judge Dana Gutierrez. And here's how the story goes. There wasn't enough evidence to prove exigent circumstances exist for the Superior Court to order a temporary injunction against the Department of Education and the Education Board. Well, correction here, Law and Order notebooks. When you're going before the court for a TRO, temporary restraining order, you don't put on evidence. You use things like affidavits and other documents, and you make allegations. It's not a trial. So the reason that the judge denied it was not because there's not enough evidence. It was because she determined that as a matter of law, that Summerfleck's not entitled to the TRO. And here it goes. The first hearing in the lawsuit filed against DOE Superintendent Swanee and the Ed Board was held virtually on Friday with Judge Dana Gutierrez. The matter before her was an ex parte motion in which Summerfleck sought a temporary injunction, actually a temporary restraining order. To be very clear, this is a quote from Summerfleck. What we request today is the court grant a temporary injunction and schedule an order to show cause hearing where we can show to the court our basis for a preliminary injunction, and if the court so desire, treat that as a trial as well. So it's this hearing on an order to show cause where the evidence would be put on. No order to show cause, no evidence. Summerfleck said, we're seeking an order that they follow the Adequate Education Act and Guam law. The second thing we're requesting, which is actually required by law, is that they present a systemic corrective action plan with deadlines of how DOE will provide plaintiffs and other similarly situated DOE students with an adequate education as defined by law. Summerfleck represents two special needs students and their parents in the lawsuit, which alleges that the superintendent and school board failed to meet the Adequate Education Act by not providing a certified teacher in the classroom of one student and failed to provide safe and healthy environment for the other student, leading to irreparable harm, which is one of the conditions that you have to be able to prove up for that TRO. We'll take a short break here.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
We don't want you standing in long lines. It's just not right. So Bank Pacific provides excellent online and mobile banking and 24/7 access to your money with our Visa debit cards. And if you want to visit any of our 4 offices, please do so, because we're short on lines and long on service, open Fridays until 6 and on Saturday mornings. Goodbye to the frustration of waiting in long lines. Say hello to Bank Pacific. It'd be our privilege. Bank Pacific, member FDIC.
So going back to where I left off here, that Summerfleck is asking for the order to show cause. There would be a hearing, and the Summerfleck could then put on evidence to show that the teacher, one of the kids doesn't have a teacher, and the other one did not have a safe learning environment. So an order to show cause is worded something like this. It would go to Swanee and the board members, telling them, you must appear in court on a time certain and demonstrate that you have complied with the petition for the TRO or show cause why you haven't. And then they testify, Summerfleck can cross-examine, and that's when he puts on his proofs. But since the judge denied the TRO, there isn't any, as the article says, there isn't any evidence for the judge to weigh, except what Dan alleges he would be able to show at the hearing on the TRO. He goes on to say, we have a very strong case. Summerfleck stressed the plaintiffs weren't asking for anything that isn't already required by the law or by the legislature. Assistant Attorney General Fred Nishihara, counsel for the board and DOEs, would play on that statement later during a hearing in building his defense that exigent circumstances didn't exist to warrant a temporary injunction. And here's what Nishihara said. On August 5, Public Law 37-32 came into effect. There are these reporting requirements for schools that had not yet done sanitary inspections to go ahead and open up. 2 schools that are in question that day fall under that law. The legislature did mandate a monthly reporting requirement. Thus, the first report due to the legislature in addition to monthly oversight hearings. So what I'm saying is the remedy that Summerfleck is requesting is addressed in legislation under 37-32. If this makes any sense to anybody out there in the international radio listening audience, please raise your hand. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. Gutierrez ruled in favor of the defense in deciding not to grant the TRO. Beyond the ex parte motion, Gutierrez also took some housekeeping issues, providing notice to the parties that she may have to remove herself from her case because her sister works at Astumbo Elementary. At the beginning of the hearing, Nishihara didn't object to the judge presiding over the case, so there was a moment when a possibility of conflict did arise. When Summerfleck made a request to the court to grant him and inspectors access to all 41 school facilities as part of discovery, the request wasn't granted. Now, I'm just having a hard time sorting all this out. But before I try, I'm going to give you a little inside information, a little lawyer knowledge, right? And you know, the old saying is this, that a good lawyer knows the law. A great lawyer knows the judge. And judges, like all of us, have their own weaknesses and strengths and vulnerabilities. Now, I'm not going to mention any names, but I found out at one time that if you represent a woman in a divorce case who is a, quote, scarlet woman, someone that perhaps one of the grounds for divorce is adultery or something like that, you didn't want this judge. She was good, She was fair. She was impartial. But that's kind of the way. Okay, I'm going to come back to this. This is a really interesting story. I'm going to come back to this tomorrow. But for now, let's say goodbye to our president. Let's go, Brendan.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
A solemn remembrance in Jacksonville. I'm Sue Guzman, Fox News. And heartbreak throughout the Jacksonville community as a racially motivated shooting left 3 people dead and the suspect turning the gun on himself. Fox's Jill Nato.
The shooter's been identified as 21-year-old Ryan Palmer. He bought guns legally in recent months, even though he had been involuntarily committed for a mental health exam in 2017. And Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters told a news conference the gunman left behind writings.
The manifesto is quite frankly, the diary of a madman. He was just completely irrational.
The sheriff said the shooter was working under a disgusting ideology of hate as he targeted black people at a Dollar General store. Waters also told reporters the gunman was acting alone. Jill Nato, Fox News.
President Biden issuing a statement Sunday condemning the killings. All eyes on Tropical Storm Idalia, which may make landfall as a hurricane in Florida Tuesday or Wednesday. Many residents preparing. Matt Treza with Fox TV affiliate WOFL has more from Whittier Springs.
Michael Demery remembers the damage Hurricane Ian did to his home.
We had 3 feet of water in our house on Ian, so we're going to make sure we have more sandbags than we had last time and do more prep.
Demery and dozens of others showed up at Winter Springs Central Winds Park to fill up sandbags, getting ready for the chance of bad weather this week.
I'm not going to take a chance after 3 months of everything destroyed in my house.
The city allowed county residents to fill 15 sandbags per household. Officials asked them to bring their own shovels, gloves, and be ready to fill and load the bags themselves. City staff recommended bringing a partner to help because filled sandbags could weigh up to 35 pounds.
Hurricane, tropical storm, and storm surge watches are posted for parts of Florida. America's listening to Fox News.
New from the Fox News Podcast Network.
I'm Emily Campagno, and this is the Fox True Crime Podcast.
And I had nothing to do with her disappearance.
I sit down with the people who lived the nightmares.
I was in shock. I was just devastated.
The investigators who tirelessly worked on the case.
And I really hope that they can catch this guy.
Bringing you closer to the story than you ever thought possible.
Listen and follow now at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
These are the stories that keep you up at night.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network. Listen to the all-new Bret Baier podcast featuring Common Ground, talking to lawmakers weekly from opposite sides of the political spectrum about the issues of the day and how Americans can find common ground in a politicized world.
That's just not happening on Capitol Hill. It takes leadership, right?
Yeah, it absolutely does.
Along with all your Bret Baier favorites like the campaign, the candidates, the all-star panel, and much more. Available now at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
A helicopter crash claiming the lives of 3 U.S. Marines off the coast of Australia.
The Osprey, it is the primary transport aircraft for the Marines. It allows for vertical takeoff and landings while traveling in the air like a turboprop. Since 2012, the tilt rotator aircraft has seen 6 fatal crashes, causing at least 19 Marine Corps deaths. Now, this is the second aircraft crash of the week for the Marine Corps. On Thursday, Major Andrew Metler died in an F-18 Hornet crash during a training exercise near San Diego. And the commanding general of the 2nd Marine Aircraft Wing there stated, "We mourn the loss of one of our brothers who was devoted to the Marine Corps mission, and it is our duty to continue forward in a manner that would reflect his devotion."
Fox's Alexandria Hoff, and Russian authorities have identified the remains found at the site of a deadly plane crash last week and they're confirming that the leader of the Wagner Group was among the 10 people killed.
The committee responsible for looking into the incident explained that forensic testing matched the flight manifest that included Wagner leader Yevgeny Prigozhin and his deputy Dmitry Utkin. Russian officials have collected debris from the crash site, including 2 black boxes that should include flight data as well as audio recordings from the cockpit. As questions remain about the exact cause of the crash, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov denied any involvement of Russian President Vladimir Putin, calling speculation a complete lie. American officials believe a bomb or similar act of sabotage brought down the business jet, not a surface-to-air missile as originally thought. On Thursday, Russian President Putin sent his condolences to Prigozhin's family, explaining that he'd known him since the early 1990s. The Russian leader added that the former mercenary general made serious mistakes in his life, but got results when asked.
Fox's Trey Yingst. And pharmacy giant Rite Aid, which is facing a slew of lawsuits over its alleged role in the opioid crisis, is reportedly planning to file Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. The Wall Street Journal says Rite Aid is not offering any comment at this time. I'm Sue Guzman. This is Fox News.
Howdy there, folks. It's Colonel Sanders here to tell you about my new hot sensation, KFC Pica Chicken. Marinated in real Tabasco, your favorite sauce now in my crispy and juicy KFC chicken. Your crispy chicken tastes like never before. Pick up your KFC Pica Chicken with the KFC Nuggets meal today. That's 6 pieces of chicken, 12 nuggets, 3 large sides, and my fluffy biscuits. Make it hotter with KFC Pica Chicken. KFC, it's finger-licking good.
Hey, it's me, your cell phone. We need to talk about something. Something serious. I know you love me. I know you like using me wherever you are, but I feel like this isn't working out when you're driving. I know you may think that it's possible to focus both on me and the road, but I just don't feel the same way. I think we should spend time away from each other when you're driving. It's for the best.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dennis Prager, and it has been quite a week. I want to thank the terrific folks. I'll do it by name a little later. I want to get into some issues. I have spoken in Prescott, Arizona on Tuesday night, which is 2 hours north of Phoenix. Gorgeous area, great weather. Then I spoke in Minneapolis, and then I spoke last night in Chicago. So you'll understand why it was not possible flying city to city to give these talks for the stations that carry me. This is a service that I provide with love, by the way, because I love my stations. And I do feel that the love is reciprocated, I will acknowledge. So anyway, hi there, everybody. I did not catch the debate because I was giving a speech in Minneapolis. I will talk about it next week. What I do want to talk about is the President of the United States, the previous president, in a mugshot. I salute President Trump for that great mugshot in a suit and tie and a furious look on his face. To think that he is being indicted, that he's arrested for telling the Secretary of State of Georgia to find votes that he believed were missing is a fraud. The actual words elude me because fraud, wrong, immoral, chaotic, none of them suffice to explain the damage to the country done by this district attorney, this prosecutor in Atlanta. I read the transcript of the president's phone call with the Secretary of State of Georgia. There was nothing wrong. Find me votes was not manufacture votes. Cheat. It had nothing to do with cheating. It had to do with the president's belief that he was robbed of a few thousand votes. And so he said, all you need to do is find those few thousand votes. You may think the president is completely wrong, out of his mind. that, of course, Democrats wouldn't cheat. What, are you kidding? The idea that Democrats would cheat in an election? Oh, my God, it's almost like saying the earth is round. So fine, you believe that it is utterly nonsense, utter nonsense, lying even, if you will, because that means usually that the individual does not believe what he is saying. There is no reason to believe that he does not believe that he was cheated. In the history of the United States, no incumbent president has received more votes in his second run and lost. Why would he think he was cheated? He went to bed leading in various states and woke up behind. Since when do we have overnight counting? This is a relatively new thing in the United States. When we had paper ballots, we knew within hours in virtually every single instance except the infamous case of Florida and the hanging chads. President of the United States is arrested. It's purely political. Of course the people who were doing it think that they're acting morally. I don't know of a case in history of any movement that did damage to its society that thought, you know what, we're really acting immorally. That's why I am not a big fan of the belief that what you think matters much. It matters very little because the number of people who have done evil while thinking good thoughts is gigantic. Virtually every Western supporter of the greatest genocidal movement in history, communism, had good thoughts. Equality of the working class, the demolition of capitalism. They weren't animated. The people who gave Stalin the secrets to the nuclear bomb, were they animated by bad thoughts? No, they did incredibly bad deeds. So the fact that the Democrats justify all the society-crushing things that they do means nothing. This is what happens when you are guided only by your conscience and not by a code. People need codes. My constant proof is speed limits. Why don't we have speed limits?